people understand that one of the first things employers or prospective employers would do would go check all the social media platforms to get an idea of who you are?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Do you think that's fair and equitable? I mean, it's obviously it happens.
You're
You're
putting
putting
it out for everybody to
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, that goes back to like cyberbullying and stuff where you have an online reputation that never goes away. So like that can really hurt you, especially like college admissions too. That can really like hurt you in the future and stuff. So that just shows you have to watch what you post. Like,
Do you think that this social media has changed those people, changed your friends, the people your age, or is it really just allowing them a vehicle to show who they really are? Are people being different because of social media? Are kids being different because of social media? I mean, that's a deep question, and but I'm just interested if you think that it's really just showing who they are, or are they just being different?
I think they're being different because it is their highlights, so it's not really their everyday life.
yeah.
So.
And it's always like, oh, let me take a picture of this so I can post it so other people can see. So that can kind of make them feel almost invincible, so that they'll be like, let me do this so I can be cool.
So if you're an
other people can see.
employer and you look at a future employee,
Right.
your business that you're working with, does that give a fair representation of who you're looking at?
No,
Not really.
but I have some stats on that. It says
Okay.
70% of employers use social media to check out their current employees and who they're gonna hire, and also 29% of college admissions counselors look too. So,
Only 29%?
I'd submit it's much higher than that.
but that's
Yeah,
still
I
like
agree.
a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I know like with recruiting and stuff, like the coaches have asked me for my like social media accounts and stuff like that so that they can get on there and follow me and look at what I'm posting and stuff like that, so.
Do you
And in,
understand?
like,
Do you understand? Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're-
Fin-
In
finish.
sorority recruitments and stuff like that, I know they have like designated people, like for certain groups of people to look at future candidates, like social media platforms to make sure that what they do is okay.
Do you ladies understand why it's so important for an employer to do that? Because when you give me your resume, if you're worth your water, you've probably put a lot of really great stuff on there. And you've probably given me the phone number for your grandma who's going to say a lot of really great things about you, or your friend who's going to say a lot of really great things about you. But as an employer, I want to know, what are you saying about yourself? Who are you really? And that's the biggest wealth of information that I can get to that tells me how you actually are outside of this piece of paper that hopefully says a lot of really good things about you. Now, the downside for you guys and your generation who have lived in social media, you've grown up with social media, you may have things from 10 years ago, that silly high school party that I went to and you know, whatever. And it still lives on there 15, 20 years later when an employer is going to go hire you for a very serious position. It may be completely benign or just a silly whatever, but it's still on there. And I guarantee you, as an employee, as a potential employer, you're not thinking, I need to go back and look through my social media and make sure I, you know, have represented myself in a way, even multiple years back, that would be professional to an employer. But it happens a lot.
That, and then once you get the job, you're also representing that company.
Yeah.
True.
So that just makes sure that you're putting stuff on there that that company would want you to be posting.
That's a fantastic point. Grace, can you say that one more time for the whole audience? I'm serious. Can you say it again?
Just that once you do get the job, you're representing that company that you're working for, and make sure that if you're putting stuff out there that they would want their clients or whoever to see. Stuff like that.
One of the things, obviously, being we're Christ followers, and our faith. You know, one of the more interesting questions that's on here to me, I'd love to hear your answers to, is if Christ had a social media account, let's take Twitter or something that I know the language of, what do you think he'd be posting? What would he use it for? How would he use it?
I think he would post like encouraging stuff, definitely like Bible verses, and like maybe so weird. Maybe people could like ask him for advice and he'd respond.
The secrets of life, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
It could just be, yeah, I guess.
Direct message.
Yeah.
Direct message.
What? If you have serious questions, just DM me or
Right,
something like
there you
that.
go.
DMJC?
We have a Bible verse on that too, and it says, it's Ephesians 5:16, let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things, God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. So it just kind of shows that like we don't get our worth from social media necessarily. It's kind of on his scripture, and obviously that would be a way that he would communicate with us through social media, maybe through
Do you think if
Bible apps and stuff.
Christ was walking today here on this earth, he would have a social media account?
think
I
he
think so.
would, yeah, because he
It
wants,
reaches such a broad, like everybody pretty much is on social
and
media.
he wants to reach out to as many people as he can, so that'd be a good way to,
What is platform be, his preferred platform?
probably Twitter.
Twitter?
He tweets.
Yeah.
So Christ would tweet, I'd say he'd have some followers.
When you all are finished with this, can you text Mr. Johnson and remind him that that is the premise of an outstanding new show on CBS and WKYT? Have you seen it yet, called God Friended Me?
God Friended Me.
God Friended Me.
Well, we're not sure yet what the producers have in mind because they haven't admitted it's God that friended me. I have watched it, but it is on CBS at 8 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that's a premise.
Let's get away from these gentlemen here. Ladies, do you secure your social media accounts? Do you protect your accounts in any way? Have you gone through the security settings to make sure that, we talked earlier about, who's able to see the stuff that you post on there? Have you protected your passwords? What do you ladies do to make sure that your social media accounts are secured?
All of mine are on private, so
Okay.
they have to ask to follow me, and I have to accept that person following for them to be able to see any of my stuff.
Okay.
And then on Instagram, to log in, you can do another setting where it's like a code setting. So if I'm logged in on Instagram on my phone and I want to get on my computer, it'll send a message to my phone with a code.
Two-factor authentication.
Yes, right. That's what I was like. I couldn't think of the word,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I know that that's protected.
I like that. It's my deal.
passwords.
That's my thing, okay?
I was gonna say the same thing. Like every time I log in, it sends me a code, and then if I log in somewhere else, so I always know if anyone's trying to log in, it'll send a code.
Did you know that the social media platforms, you mentioned this earlier, I think with Snapchat, track all of your data, and you can actually request that entire data packet to be sent to you for most of those social media platforms? Okay. Did you know you can also track where people log on to your social media accounts from? In a lot of cases, not all of them, but a
Yeah,
lot
my
of
mom's
cases.
Facebook has gotten hacked like 2 or 3 times, and I guess she's contacted somebody and they've told her like where they've logged on from and stuff like that.
Why is that a problem if somebody hacks into your social media account, Riley?
Because, well, I know nowadays you can link credit cards and all that to accounts or whatever it might be. Like on Snapchat, I don't know if it's still a thing, but there was a thing called Snap Cash,
Yeah.
where you could send money through that app. So, and a lot of private information.
Indulge me for just a minute, I'm gonna take you on just a short trip. A couple of weeks ago, I started getting emails to my personal email account,
Yeah.
welcoming me to Instagram
Here it goes.
and to Snapchat. Here it is. You were waiting on it.
I wasn't
Dave.
gonna bring it
I know,
up, but this
I
is
know.
what's caused
I'm just
This
interested.
is why he knows Finstagram. So I started getting these messages welcoming me to Instagram and to Snapchat. I have no Instagram and Snapchat. Guess what? I have Instagram and Snapchat. So I went to look at the accounts.
Yeah.
And I can't get into the account. So I put in my email address, reset the password, and now I can get into the accounts. And guess what? Somebody was setting up accounts in my name. And Snapchat, Instagram, Netflix, Spotify, a couple other ones. What's that?
So, wow, that's
Yeah.
It is wow. So, being in IT and being the very nice Christian IT guy that I am, I decided to start pursuing this. And I found out a lot of information based on this person's Snapchat and Instagram accounts. In fact, I've got an entire spreadsheet full of
They messed
everything
with the
about
wrong
them.
person, didn't
They
they?
did. It was a really bad idea. I know.
Yeah.
Short story long, it turned out to be a 13-year-old kid who lives in Queensland, Australia, and works at the Ben & Jerry's. I know a lot about him. I actually know what school he goes to. I know his parents' phone numbers. Do you know why? Because he decided to set up social media accounts using an email address that belongs to me. Because he didn't want to tie it to his own email address. And his name, very rightly, just happens to be Seth Robinson. Well named by his parents. It's great. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. He set up accounts that tie to his personal information that I now have access to.
Right.
What do you think happens if I contact those social media platforms and tell them that that's not me and I want them to close those accounts? Do you think they respond to me very quickly?
No.
No. Why not?
Because it doesn't affect them.
It doesn't affect them.
And they don't know that
However,
you're
let's go down this trail. So first of all, shame on the social media platforms for allowing him to create accounts that weren't tied to an email address that was a valid email address for him. But what's the problem for me of him using a social media account that is tied to my email address?
Because you found out all that information.
That's to my credit, yes. But what happens if he uses those social media accounts and maybe he asks somebody for some inappropriate things to be sent to him over one of those accounts?
If they're going to trace it, it could trace it.
Trace back to you, so you're
And then
in
you're,
trouble.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that-
technically the one holding the accounts.
Now, to my credit, not to his, he set up accounts with my email address, so now I have all of his accounts. I've taken them all over and I'm shutting them down one by one. But yes, I know way too much about Snapchat and Instagram all of a sudden. So, from a 13-year-old kid in Australia who has a fantastic name. Yes.
What? Go ahead.
So you ladies talked about the addictive tendencies associated with social media. So I think about another industry that's highly regulated. So think about cigarettes, right? Like we have the warning labels on cigarettes, it's highly regulated by the government. Could you see social media going in that direction where it starts to become more, because you talked about the addictive nature, you said it's a lot like the tendencies of cocaine, gambling. So I think those are, one's illegal and one's highly regulated. So where are we going with social media as it relates to government regulation?
So it's not regulated, but there's like a big discussion on whether it should be regulated or not. And I looked up, so Paul Barrett, who's the deputy director at the NYU Center for Business Rights and Human Development, said that the problem with turning to government to regulate more aggressively is that it could easily and probably would result in an overreaction by the companies to avoid whatever punishment was put in place. And he said that would interfere with the free expression that is one of the benefits of social media. If the platforms do this work themselves, they can do it more precisely and do it without government overreach.
And another thing on it, as far as cyberbullying is, it is considered a crime in some states, so they kind of have placed a little bit of rules on that. So in California, the use of electronic communication causing fear for one's life is a misdemeanor and has a fine of $1,000 and up to 1 year in jail.
It's just a misdemeanor though.
Yes, and then in Missouri, it is the use of social media to bully another person can be charged with harassment, a Class A misdemeanor, but a Class D felony if the victim is 17 or younger and the defendant is 21. So it kind of just depends how old, I guess, each person is.
What do you think the difference is between bullying and First Amendment rights? Where is that line?
Like freedom of speech.
I don't know, it's kind of a fine line to draw between what somebody can say and what they can't say, because
I know there is stuff that's not protected in the freedom of speech, like fighting words, advocating illegal activity, profanity, false statements. All social media networks have rules and guidelines for user-generated content that fits to the app. So there are certain stuff that's not protected in the First Amendment freedom of speech, but I don't know how that would.
And I would definitely say, like, if the cyberbully is threatening you, then that's, like, different than just free speech, where you need to take action of that if they're, like, threatening you.
So you guys said the social media platforms have rules about those sorts of things. Have you guys read any of those user agreements with the social media platforms?
I usually disagree. It's really long.
What you do with 99%?
I was gonna say, what percentage of people in this room do that?
I mean,
Yes,
I usually
100%.
just scroll in. Yeah.
That plays in their favor, trust me.
Yeah.
The one thing that, the show Catfish was developed because of, obviously, catfishing.
Yes.
And what do you think, I'm really interested in what's behind why people are doing certain things. It's not so much the vehicle that they're using, to
Right.
me. It's not the social media platform, that is what it is. It's how you use it that's interesting. And catfishing is just at its face, just deceiving somebody for whatever material gain, relationship, whatever. And then Catfish, the show, for, I don't know if any of the other old people here
It was,
watch Catfish, but I've actually watched
It was on
Catfish.
MTV in 2010.
Yeah, there you go. Why do you think why did catfishing develop? What drives it? Why do people, and do you know people who have been catfished and what it's done
For
to
most
them?
on the show, it's like from a sense of bullying or having like a friendship with somebody and then wanting it to be something more, but they don't. Or just being lonely and just a hobby, and all of a sudden it spirals into like big, deeper effects. And it's a deceptive activity, so.
Do you know anybody who's been catfished? Anybody personally that you all know? And in any way, I know that show's about kind of more dramatic
Right.
travel across the country, and you got
Yeah.
somebody who's maybe a guy, maybe a girl, maybe whatever, whatever the case may be, but it's just shocking to me that people will go to the lengths that they go to put on a fake facade.
Right.
So do you think that's who they were, or it just comes from like you mentioned, a lonely place, or a devious place or what?
I think it could also be used to gain like satisfaction, because I mean, obviously talking in person, I can't say I'm someone else. I can't like change who I am, but over this, like through the screens, I can. So I think they can become like satisfied in that. That can go back to like being rooted in loneliness. If I want to change who I am, like depression, like all of that social media can cause, you can change it. You can hide behind the screen. So like the satisfaction that comes with that.
And do you think it's different between girls and boys, how you approach the social media? Do girls, what are the differences between the way girls approach social media and the way boys, obviously you're all four girls, so you may not know, but I would imagine you have some ideas as to how
Right.
guys treat social media. What are the differences there? Sorry, Dave.
No, you're good.
Girls definitely like want to make their feed look like all laid out and perfect, so that edit their pictures like VSCO, what we were talking about. And I know a lot of girls, which is really sad, who would like actually edit their pictures, like their body.
Yeah.
And
You can make your thigh, you can make your thigh like smaller,
which
Or
is
you can,
really
like,
sad. You can whiten your
Consider that,
teeth.
yeah.
you can
Like
change
those are
your
actual
color.
like operations you do on
Oh, there's no
Disco or
question.
whatever?
Yeah.
Or is
Not
it
on
something
Disco.
you have
There's
to?
an
Those
there's an alcohol
Separate.
photo
Separate.
wonder that I had. Like,
Have you guys ever edited pictures?
I think in like fifth
And
grade.
then somebody said, why are you doing that? You're beautiful. Why would you do that?
yeah.
Right?
Sometimes
Right.
it's like really obvious.
Yeah, I
and you're
think-
like,
Yeah,
As opposed to guys
Yeah,
in
guys
social
are just like,
media,
oh,
what do
just
guys
like
use
that.
social media?
Sports and
Hanging with the boys.
I think
So
they're
is it much
interested.
more
Oh, that's so
of a, is it a
disturbing.
more of a practical use for guys? Like if they want to get mad at somebody, they're gonna yell at somebody over it, or they're gonna watch a sports score or share something?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas girls, it's more
Showing
a
yourself.
manifestation of who I,
Yeah.
You're showing, you're like expressing yourself to your friends.
For Twitter,
guys as well.
yeah, for Twitter, I would say boys are always talking about sports, so that's,
Debating.
yeah, that's definitely for the boys, but, girls are definitely more addicted, I would say, to social media.
really?
Yeah.
Do you find that people have said things on social media that you know, and you said to yourself, they would have never said that to that person face to face?
Most of them. Twitter followers.
Yes.
Especially if you're like hiding behind a screen.
Right?
And they're like a different account.
It's a lot easier. If people feel like invincible through a screen. That goes into cyberbullying again. You can say whatever you want.
And
That's a-
catfishing.
I think that's a great lead-in, Mr. Baker mentioned, because talk to me a little bit about how society and the way we interact in society has changed with the advent of social media, because I would debate that social media really isn't that social. But tell me a little bit, maybe each of you can come up with a way that with the introduction of social media has changed the way we react to each other in society.
Or how you think, because
Yeah.
they haven't lived with us.
They haven't lived with that, or your parents have told you that this is different.
It has a lot of negative effects on relationships.
Okay, how so?
It says on a study based on like romantic relationships, it says 2% of arguments come from one partner being distracted by their phone.
Mhm.
And then 18% of arguments are due to the fact that one partner spends too much time on their phone. And 8% of arguments come from what one partner is doing online. So whether that's like liking another, say, girl's pictures, or direct messaging somebody, or having a fake account, catfishing, stuff like that.
Like jealousy kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of that stems from social media. So they're not spending as much time one-on-one, and they're kind of distracted and stuff.
So distractions are one thing that's
Yeah.
changed in
Like
society.
if you go to dinner and you see a couple out at dinner and they're both on their phone, you're like, what are you
I was thinking about that exact thing. I have sat at a table and watched 4 girls around another table do it, and in my head, they're texting each other across
Yeah.
the table. What are you getting? I don't know, I'm gonna get the lasagna. What about you? But what other ways has society been changed by the social media influence?
I would say that information gets spread a lot more quicker.
Mhm.
A lot quicker, sorry.
Don't say deers.
One example is like one time in like in middle school, yeah, our friend got hit by a car, Mason Wade, and I remember, sorry, can I say his name?
You just did.
Okay, well,
You just did.
anyway, I remember waking up the next morning and being like, seeing all these posts saying pray for Mason, I was like confused. But that's just an example of how information gets spread quicker, because I had no idea.
But do you find yourself checking that information anymore? Because I'll tell you what happens in the news business is I'll be trying to get something done one day, and somebody will post something on social media, and somebody from downstairs will come running up about something happening to somebody or somebody got suspended or something, it's like, fellas, if you like